Knowledge is power, and this is powerful stuff. Wellness Education Cannabis Advocates of Nevada present the Wecan 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour with your hosts Michael McAuliffe and Jen Solis. For the next 60 minutes, we'll take an in-depth look at the cannabis reform revolution sweeping the nation. The phone lines are open at 731-1230. That's 731-1230 or toll-free. 1-866-820-5528. That's 1-866-820-KLAV. Now, let's bring on the hosts. Here is Michael McAuliffe and Jen Solis.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael McAuliffe.
I'm Jen Solis.
And we're here to present the inaugural broadcast of the Wecan 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour. We're here to talk to you for the next 60 minutes about the reform that is sweeping the nation, the revolution after 77 years of propaganda and prohibition, seeing the opposition on this issue crumbling like the Berlin Wall.
Woohoo! So get your medication delivery devices ready for our 420 moment. Everybody, are you ready? Let's go.
All right. We're going to start off with some Nevada news. A lot is happening in this state and around the country almost on a daily basis. One of the things that we're very happy to see in the last week is that Nevada has added now PTSD as a qualifying condition for the medical cannabis program. Activists have been lobbying for this change for years, and this does represent the first addition to the qualifying conditions since the inception of the program in 2001. There has been a tremendous amount of research done around the world, particularly in Israel, about the efficacy of medical cannabis in treating post-traumatic stress disorder. And I don't know about you guys out there, but I think that in this country we do not do nearly enough for veterans. And if this is something that helps even some of them, it is a really good step for us to take.
So now we can protect not only their bodies but their minds. PTSD is a devastating condition that our soldiers come back with. We don't want to exploit them when they come back by just getting them hooked on MRIs or SSRIs, and then they are addicted to different types of pain medication and mood-altering medication.
Absolutely. Using cannabis as a non-toxic substance is definitely a step in the right direction. And it's not that we are advocating the use of this therapy. We're not doctors, but we just think that it should be open and available for doctors to recommend as a possible course of treatment. In 2010, actually, the Veterans Administration came out with a ruling that said that the VA was not going to be denying treatment for their veterans in states that had medical marijuana programs and were in those states that the vets were testing positive for cannabis.
So in fact, what they did was they said that it did have medical use. That is an admittance to me. What about you? Absolutely.
And what it does is it at least opens the door to the possibility that this might work for some people. And they were accepting the reality of the situation that many vets and many physicians are already quietly recommending this. So for the state to come forward at this point and say that they are allowing this as a qualifying condition is really a big step. We have a lot of veterans in this state, and everything that we can do to help them, I say let's go forward to it. Also in Nevada, what we have happening is the development of the regulations for the launching of this new multi-billion-dollar medical cannabis industry that's going to take place. Just last week, we had both the county and the city holding hearings. The city held a planning commission hearing as well as a city council hearing, and the county also had a zoning hearing. And
the city has a meeting tonight at 6 p.m. They have a workshop at 6 p.m. in the city council chambers.
And absolutely, everybody interested in this issue, want to put your 2 cents in, get involved. And really, that's what we've been doing, and that's why we're here on the air with you, because we have decided that we need to be involved. We can't really complain about the direction that this country is going in if we're not willing to step up and take an active role in trying to propose an alternative.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have to be responsible for government as much as you can. You have to go in and you vote and you get educated on their issues. You find out where your candidates stand.
And so we and a number of other activists were at the city and the county hearings last week. In the case of the county, they've decided to move forward unanimously to develop this industry and to also look at these applications as being special use permits. That means that the county commission is going to vote on each and every one of these, and it's not going to be a standard condition where somebody wants to open up a five and dime store or something like that, and they just go through business licensing, get the proper stamps, and boom, it's done. The county commission is going to be taking a careful look at every one of these applicants and where they're going in the community. They're very cognizant of the fact that some people may not want to have these next to their neighborhoods, yet the legislature wanted to have these facilities, these dispensaries, available for the general community, just like any other pharmacy. They don't want people...
Safe access. That's what it's about. Safe access to medication. If these places are more than 5-6 miles from their house, then how can they have access to them?
Absolutely. You don't want to make it an undue burden for patients to go out there and to take care of their medical needs. And on the city level, the city council voted by a 5-2 vote to explore and develop the regulations for crafting this proposal. The Mayor Goodman was very specific in saying we're not voting to approve medical marijuana in the city, but we're voting to take a look at this because the city is starting to realize how much money is going to be made by tax revenues by these businesses, and the city does not want to miss out on that particular aspect of it. And I like
that's that would be the only reason. I mean, if they don't vote to have the dispensaries in the city of Las Vegas, there's still going to be cannabis there. There's still going to be patients, and people still need access, and they'll go to Clark County and get it. So city will miss out on a ton of money.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And so what the city has done is essentially they haven't bought the house, but they've ordered a set of blueprints. And so it's the first step on what they need to do to develop this industry. I see we have our first caller here. How exciting. Hi, Jacob. Welcome to the show. What can I do for you?
Hey, Michael. Hey, Jen. I just wanted to say congratulations on the first Wecan radio show. I'm definitely going to be looking forward to tuning in every Tuesday afternoon from now on. So thank you.
I think I recognize you.
Yeah, this is the Jacob McCarthy that you guys have been speaking with in the past. So
this is Jacob from Periscope. He's also a patient, if I can call you out like that.
Oh, no, absolutely. And what you guys were talking about earlier about the reclassification of allowing PTSD patients to have PTSD condition to be a qualifying factor. As a veteran, as a retired veteran of the armed services.
Thank you for serving.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I'm very pleased to see that that's also now going to be a qualifying factor, because I know, in addition to myself, there's a lot of other vets out there that suffer from anxiety and sleep insomnia and a whole bunch of other things related to wartime service. And I can speak from experience that medical marijuana does have a profound effect.
Well,
on
can I ask you a
symptoms.
couple questions?
Absolutely.
When you got back from overseas, were the doctors trying to put you on medication, or were they just trying to relieve something that you were coming in as a veteran with?
It wasn't really medication so much. It was a lot of questions and observation. So they also did a lot of music therapy and group therapy.
That's great.
Yeah, they didn't really try to whack it with a whole bunch of meds. They were pretty caring, and they were pretty open and honest about it. And there was a really good open dialogue, not only between doctors and patients, but in addition to the rest of the chain of command, so that your supervisors were aware like, hey, this person is coming back, they have this condition, you need to be a little bit more sensitive about dealing with them in the workplace. So, and it was nice, and
that's great.
Especially now that I'm out, I've found that medical marijuana, in addition to the music therapy and the group sessions, does help. It's a nice augmentation.
That's great.
To the treatment. So I think that's absolutely amazing.
As a veteran, I'm sure you're aware of the phenomenally and outrageously unacceptable high level of suicides coming from veterans who have been forced to serve not just 1 or 2 or 3 tours, but some of these guys are deployed 8 or 9 times, and they come back into society and just can't deal with it. And that level of suicides that we're seeing in this country is unforgivable. And
the number of suicides are actually greater than the wartime deaths from this last conflict, and that's what I find unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I should say, I haven't experienced that with brethren from my service, but I have, as you're saying, have heard lots of stories of it. So I know the Air Force has a really good system in place for people, and I think that might be because they have fewer service members in the Air Force, so they're able to appropriate funds a little bit differently.
Okay.
But I can imagine, like in the Army and the Marines, when they have a higher count of service members, the appropriation and the care just doesn't go as far because there's just more people that they have to spread it out to.
Well, and using this therapy as an alternative, as I said earlier, in Israel they're doing groundbreaking research on this, and they're really having terrific success with it. So just giving this medication the opportunity to help some of these people is, I think, a tremendous boon. We certainly don't want to be in a situation where we are enabling people to who are out on the street just to have another amotivational factor not to get their lives together. But so many of these people are traumatized to such a degree that any of us who have not been deployed into a war zone, we can't imagine it. I mean, we may watch a couple of war movies, but we don't have the faintest clue of what they've been through.
That's true, and the rate also of addiction when people get back from particularly violent tours of duty are astronomical. Trauma takes place not only to people's minds but to people's bodies, and that we can treat this PTSD with something that's natural and that has never harmed anybody is just a great step forward for the state of Nevada.
Absolutely, and so we're looking forward at having research done in this area to absolutely determine the usefulness of this. And once again, it's not that we're trying to get anybody to use this substance that doesn't want to or would be disinclined to, but so many people are on much harder substances already, industrial pharmaceuticals, and I've certainly have met some people over the years who have had opioid habits or other things, who have used cannabis to wean off of those other substances, and that includes alcohol as well, which is harmful in a very major way.
They say that it stops the cue impulse, and the cue impulse is what would drive you to want the substance.
Okay, so then moving on, we have other Nevada news, a couple of other points before our break. The state, according to the Review Journal, the state is getting ready to hire medical marijuana inspectors for the establishments that will be licensed.
That would be my freaking dream job.
Well, it's not quite what you think. What they're looking to do is license these people up to verify security systems, making sure that the dispensaries and the cultivation sites have for 24-hour security, that the meds do not leave the cultivation sites to unauthorized destinations.
So no sampling?
That includes the inspectors, I think. And it's not just for anybody to run down there and sign up, because they're requiring that the applicants will have an environmental health background and experience in inspection of other state facilities.
So that's usually a bachelor's degree. Sometimes you can get an associate's degree, but usually a bachelor's for environmental inspection.
Yes, I think that it is going to require both that specialized knowledge and experience. So it will be a very limited pool of people who are going in that area. The state has allocated $1 million so far. They're going to be hiring 6 inspectors and a supervisor with budgeting for ultimately a staff of 12.
Well, I can inspect it.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Let me give a shout out to somebody who's not always popular in this state, but was popular enough to win re-election again, and that's Harry Reid, because Harry has seen the light. I've tried to talk to Harry a number of times over the years, and he's been either not especially knowledgeable or not interested in this issue so much. But just last month, he has come out and he says, "I think we need to take a real close look at this. I think that there's some medical reasons for marijuana." He said this in an interview with the Las Vegas Sun.
So it means that he has some investments, maybe?
I don't know what it means. I'm just happy to have him on our side.
Whatever reason, Harry.
That's for sure.
I'm glad that you've seen the light on that one.
Definitely. One of the most important parts of the interview were that what Harry did say towards the end of the interview was that he thought the current legal system for prosecuting and sentencing cannabis users was extremely flawed. He said, and I quote, "I guarantee you one thing: we waste a lot of time and law enforcement going after these guys that are smoking marijuana."
Amen.
So, thank you, Harry. I don't agree with everything you do by a long shot, but you're spot on here.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break and be back in just a minute with more news from the national front.
The Von Dank Group offers turnkey solutions for all your cannabis needs, bringing transparency and responsibility to a young, budding industry. Helping patients by producing the cleanest, safest, and most potent medicines and infusibles possible. The Von Dank Group is a design, management, and consulting corporation with over 30 years of industry experience and knowledge of the dispensary, edibles, infusible kitchen, and large-scale cultivation of cannabis manufacturing facilities. Let the Von Dank Group help you grow your cannabis business from seed to green. www.vondank.com. Do you need help getting your Nevada medical marijuana card? Dr. Reefer is now accepting new patients. There are no medical records required. We have a doctor on staff to give you a thorough physical examination. There is a 99% approval rate for patients. They also have a money-back guarantee. If you don't qualify, you don't pay. Free consultation is available. Call 702-428-0000. 702-428-0000 to get your Nevada medical marijuana card today.
This is the Wecan 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour. Call us with your questions at 731-1230. Now, here again, your hosts, Michael McAuliffe and Jen Solis.
Hi, we're going on to the national news now, and there are a lot of news stories. What's in the news, Michael?
I don't know where to begin. We have so much happening every day. It's like the crumbling of the Soviet Union after the Berlin Wall came down. You had 17 Soviet republics, and it seemed like every other week one was falling off. And so what we have, woohoo indeed. So let's see. I'll grab one at random to start here. Florida lawmakers introduce bills to legalize medical marijuana. This came out just yesterday. It was posted, and Florida state legislatures introduced identical bills on Monday to legalize medical marijuana treatment in the 2014 legislative session in a bid to win approval before a constitutional amendment on the issue comes up for public vote in November. What this means is that the lawmakers have seen the tea leaves, and they understand that the voters in Florida are going to pass this. So they want to make sure that they get their legislation through to make sure that they
get on the money train?
Well, they craft it the way that they want to, and rather than leaving it up to a voter initiative. And in fact, the governor of Oregon just last week came out and suggested that the Oregon legislature take up actual Colorado-style legalization in an effort to avoid a citizen initiative on the same process, because the people who are in these offices tend to think that they can write better bills than they get through citizen initiatives.
Oh, that's hilarious. 99% of them haven't even seen what a joint looks like.
Yes, I know. It's a classic legislative situation.
I don't even even know what it looks like. I have
never
no
smoked
clue.
it. I don't know anybody who smokes it. I've never seen it. Don't know anything about it. So let's write a law controlling it. So anyway, the Florida Supreme Court recently approved the ballot language that's on the amendment that had a challenge by people who said that it was confusing to the average voter. But since the Supreme Court gave it that go-ahead, the Florida legislature has decided to act preemptively, and it's very likely that since the wording is identical in both versions, that it will have a greater chance of passage, and we're likely to see Florida get added to the rolls of medical cannabis states this year. And they're absolutely. And they're certainly not the only state in the South, which is our last bastion. But we're going to get back to that in just a minute, because I see by the clock it's 4:20.
It's 4:20. Hi, everybody. It's 4:20. We have a 4:20 moment where we're saluting heroes in the Nevada cannabis movement, and our first hero is Peggy Pierce. And I'll have Michael tell you about Peggy.
Peggy was an assemblywoman who I first met in 2009, and at that time, going up to testify before the legislative sessions, I found very few friends up there, and I got to speak to Peggy over the course of the next several years a few times, and she told me that she had had a personal battle with cancer, and while she did not turned to cannabis as a medical alternative, she was certainly sympathetic to the needs of patients. And that manifested itself through last year when, in the final stages of terminal breast cancer, she interrupted her chemotherapy treatment in order to fly up to Carson City to become the deciding vote in the Assembly in passage of Senate Bill 374, which is the medical cannabis reform law. And without her vote, it would not have gotten the 2/3 majority needed. And sadly, she passed away just a few months later. And it was her final act in the legislature, and one of great compassion and generosity for many people who are suffering in the state. And, it's that kind of selflessness that I think defines a hero, and certainly a Nevada hero.
It's certainly a Nevada hero. Also, that battle-born spirit. She got up and she flew up there and decided to vote. And for that reason, she's our hero.
Absolutely. And, bless Peggy Pierce, and we hope she's in a happier place.
If you want to vote for a hero, you can go on our Facebook website or our website and nominate a hero for our 420 moment.
And the website is?
And our website is www.wecan702.org. And we also have a Facebook. Our Facebook is Wecan702, and you can find us there.
Yes, we can. And
yes,
so,
we can.
Yes, we can, and yes, you will. So the Deep South, I just mentioned Florida, it seems to be the last bastion of social conservatism against the acceptance of cannabis as a medically therapeutic solution.
That's ironic because it's the number one cash crop of a lot of those states.
Absolutely it is. And we see what's happening not only in Florida, but also in Georgia and Alabama. Powerful GOP lawmakers are putting their weight behind bills that will allow for the limited use of cannabis oil by those with specific conditions.
That's great.
We also see the same thing actually happening in Utah. And these oils that they're talking about have no THC, so there's no psychoactive high to it. It's a case where it's CBD, which is a pain-relieving quality. And in the case of these oils, and what they're trying to do in these several states, is they're making it available for kids who have something called Dravet's syndrome, which gives them multiple epileptic seizures every day. And as Sanjay Gupta had a special on CNN several months ago, where he showed that one particular case where this child who had been going from multiple episodes of epileptic seizures per day down just to 5 or so a month. That's just a huge difference in the quality of life just for that girl and that family. family. And so you have
most people don't know about seizures is that when you have seizures, it does a mild form of brain damage. So seizures on top of seizures on top of seizures not only does a mild form of brain damage, but it can heat your body up and you have fevers, and that also damages the brain.
Yeah, so this is a very sensible and compassionate treatment for these kids and for their families, and
safe.
Yeah, and absolutely safe too. That goes without saying. Although I guess we need to
over and over.
It's a sort of case where if cannabis didn't get people high and it were newly discovered, everybody would say it's a miracle drug, and let's get it into the supply chain as quickly as we can. So at least in these states, they're looking at the therapeutic benefit of those other cannabinoids. And by this oil not having THC, it takes away that terrible thing of making sick people feel euphoric.
Happy?
Making people happy. So we see that these states are moving forward in a very positive direction. Now, you've also got other states moving forward, and that includes Alaska, which has enough petition signatures have been verified to place on their ballot an initiative seeking to legalize cannabis just in the way that Colorado and Washington had. They'll be voting on August 19th. And
Go Alaska.
And go Alaska. It's in many ways, it's a very libertarian state. They're very socially progressive on this issue, despite being an overall conservative state. And it looks like the polling shows that they're going to pass. So Alaska may be number 3 in this race.
Well, Alaska at one time decriminalized it, didn't they? Or didn't they have it legalized?
Back in 1975, yes.
Back in 1975?
And it still has one of the more liberal views on personal cannabis possession of anywhere in the country. So
still, I'm happy. Now there's more places that I can go on vacation, huh?
That's a reason to go to Alaska, I guess. So I hear they grow awful big mosquitoes up there. So
I heard they grow awful big plants.
Oh, maybe that too.
Land of the midnight sun, huh?
All right, let's see. Moving on to Texas, which is showing a little bit of a schizophrenia on the part of its governor, Rick Perry. A couple of weeks ago, Rick Perry said that he would be open to the idea of decriminalizing cannabis to save on resources in their prison system and their justice system, because he didn't think that it was useful to spend all that money putting potheads in jail.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. But then just a few days ago, he was at a drug conference over in Denmark, I believe it was, and he said just the opposite. I don't think we should be decriminalizing that. I think we need to be tougher on it. And so I think what's happening there is some of his backers have said, Rick, we don't want you going that way. But even for these people to broach these subjects,
you never know.
Amazing.
People get up to the line and then they get scared. Speaking of somebody who doesn't get scared.
Yep. We have our guest for the day, Senator Tick Segerbloom, in the chair here, and we'll be getting to him in just a couple of minutes. But we'd like to welcome him to our show. Also in Texas, interesting news just released on Saturday that a Texas grand jury refused a murder indictment of a man who killed a deputy who was on a no-knock raid. And it says here that a grand jury in Central Texas, no hotbed of liberalism there, refused Wednesday to indict a man on murder charges after he killed a sheriff's deputy who stormed his house while executing an early morning no-knock warrant looking for marijuana last December. And it says that, in my opinion, and I'm quoting, the Burleson County Sheriff's Office did nothing illegal by securing and executing a no-knock search warrant that day, said Julie Rankin, who's the 21st Judicial District Attorney, in a statement. I believe that the evidence shows that the announcement was made. However, it is not enough evidence that Mr. McGee knew that peace officers were entering his home. The events occurred in a matter of seconds among chaos. The self-defense laws in Texas are viewed in the mindset of the actor, not the victim, which allows for tragedies to occur when one party is acting lawfully, but it can be reasonably seen as a threat of deadly force by another. And that's the end of the quote. And Wow, indeed. And, it's a terrible situation. One
the police
family
officer lost their life over a plant and serving a warrant on somebody, and the person that was defending their home, is off scot-free for this.
Well,
but
he's still facing charges for possession of marijuana while in possession of a deadly weapon. So he's still facing charges. But, if they thought there was something going on in his home, they could have sent 2 detectives over there and just knocked and resolved this situation peaceably. I think that the incidence of high-risk, violent SWAT raids in these places that are just looking for people who are growing or possessing or even selling pot, it doesn't matter. It's a nonviolent crime. And I've been looking back for my 16 years in Nevada here that I've been aware of this topic, and I have not found a single incidence of metro officers or state officers running up into a violent confrontation with pot growers. Meth houses or something, sure, but
domestic violence, yeah. But
so let's save the money. Let's not spend $20,000 on a SWAT raid. Let's just send a couple of detectives and resolve these things peaceably. So I think
peace is always good.
Peace is good. So I think we're up to our next break, and we'll be back in just a minute with State Senator Tick Segerbloom.
Wecan 702 is a Nevada cannabis community. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that meets in Southern Nevada. We are a social group that started in Las Vegas for patient support. We've been active in the community for over 5 years. If you'd like to join us on any of our events or parties, please contact us through Facebook at Wecan 702, on Meetup at www.meetup.com/Wecan 702. Our website is www.wecan702.org. Be a part of the Nevada Cannabis Reform Revolution. Please join us and donate today.
This is the Wecan 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour. Call us with your questions at 731-1230. Now, here again, your hosts, Michael McAuliffe and Jen Solis.
We're back in studio right now with Tick Segerbloom, and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in for our inaugural news hour. Let's get right into the questions. Some people say that such a limited session of 128 days every other year on legislature, and that there are much more pressing news than cannabis politics. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would say that there's nothing more public right now. I mean, I think every TV station, every newspaper is full of this issue. So for whatever reason, the public really likes it. And the fact was, it took us 12 years to get there, but at least we finally got something through the legislature.
Yes, thank you.
I think that my sentiment or sense of things is that the public is far ahead of most of our politicians and legislators on this issue, and so they've kind of said enough is enough, and when we have our elected officials finally coming to grips with that. And I think it's also an economic issue as well, because we can't afford to keep putting so many people in prison.
Absolutely. The stars are in alignment as far as the public sentiment's there, and the economics are there as far as trying to tax it and make money, and also trying to save money by having the police divert to other things more useful. So everything is there. But it's funny that it just all of a sudden came together in 2013.
Oh, I'm very happy that it came together in 2013.
And really, it's like one of those things where everybody says you can't do it, and all of a sudden the emperor has no clothes. When we finally did it, it's like, whoa, there's nobody opposing it.
I think you're absolutely right. I think in 10 years, 20 years, people are going to look back at this prohibition and now at this, which will be a watershed year, and say, what took them so long? How ridiculous was it to be so up in arms about this?
Yeah, it was, particularly 68% of the people voted for it, put it in the Constitution back in 2000. Yeah. So why it took 13 years is pretty amazing. But the reality is it took that long. Thanks to your support, we got it through. And now we just have to stay on it, because it's, as you know, it's never over till it's over. And until that first dispensary is open, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah. Speaking of the process, what do you think is the biggest stumbling block in the current rollout process that's going on right now?
Well, I think surprisingly, the local government people are much more conservative and behind the times than the legislature was. And, of course, we were 12 years behind the time. So just trying to educate everybody and let them know that this is not the end of the world, and also that everybody wants to have their finger in the pie and get a little piece of the action. So everybody has to have their ego stroked and maybe some campaign contributions and stuff. But we're going to get there.
Okay, all right.
You have a long history of being a plaintiff's employment attorney in an at-will employment state. Fighting for the little guy against corporate interests must be a difficult line of work. What got you into this area of the law?
It was frankly just very random. When I moved back in 1983, I was kind of at the low person on the totem pole, and I got cases no one else wanted, and this was just when employment law was starting, so people would pass cases around, and they would finally end up on my desk, and I started out on it, and I discovered that it is so much fun because the people you represent wouldn't have any rights, and if it wasn't for you, and even though it's an uphill battle, you can win once in a while, and you can definitely get people's attention, which is the other part of this, is you're trying to actually change behavior. And I think you can say that between early 80s and today, corporate behavior has changed dramatically as far as treating at-will employees.
And you think that's part of a lawsuit process? Because if you've got somebody who's a cocktail waitress at one of the strip casinos, and you've got a multi-property corporation up against them, and the deep pockets of their lawyers, it would seem really David versus Goliath.
It is, but at the end of the day, who won the battle? So it's something where you just have to hang in there. You can't go toe-to-toe with them. You have to punch them in the eye and run like hell. But if you do that, you can make a difference. And I think the proof is in the pudding. I think people are treated much more humanely now than they were.
Well, making a difference is really important, and certainly we see that you're doing that in the legislature. You were elected to the seat that was held by Christian Kiliani when she moved over to the county commission. Did pot politics come with the seat, or was there something else that motivated you to get on this third rail issue?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if it's in the water or not, but
that's perchlorate.
She definitely was and is the leader of this issue and stuck her neck out there back when it really was unpopular.
Yeah, and she is a champion.
Yeah, so no matter what, you just have to hand your hat to her and just thank her every day for what she's done for the state of Nevada on this and many other issues. She's just by far the best politician in the state as far as I'm concerned. But the reality is the seat is good because it's a safe Democratic seat, so once you're there, you can take controversial issues, and I think that's probably why I took it up. But I looked around and said, what is it that we haven't tackled, that we haven't had the courage to look at? And this issue just hit me in the face because it's one. The first couple of sessions I was there, they would try to pass a bill or try to get a bill introduced, and they couldn't get the bill introduced, and they couldn't get it heard, and they couldn't get a vote, and it just seemed like somebody had to kind of make it front and center, get out there, put their reputation on the line, and
we thank you for it.
Yeah, but as I said, when it actually happened, it's like the emperor had no clothes. I mean, all these people that have been saying, "Oh my God, the world's going to die if we actually vote on this thing." The Republicans jumped on board, and it was like, we're off to the races. And the governor signed it, which is really a shocker.
Well, I think that he saw the will of the people as well, and he's looking for re-election and then ultimately higher office. And I think that we're seeing around the country a realization by politicians. You had the Department of Justice in 2010 vigorously oppose the California legalization initiative when the president wasn't running. But in 2012, when the president was in a hot race for re-election, and you had Colorado and Washington on the ballot, DOJ kept absolutely mum. And quite often we see that in these various states, pot polls higher than politicians.
Absolutely. And now if you look at I think the real key is going to be the governor's race in Florida, where Chris has actually come out in favor of the thing on the ballot for medical marijuana. And I think he sees it as a winning issue. It's going to bring out a lot of voters that wouldn't otherwise vote. It's a thing that breaks long generational lines. And so I just think that in the future, if you're opposed to it, it's going to be tough to be elected.
Well, speaking of Governor Sandoval, there's talk of introduction of a legislation of the bill in the next session for just complete legalization. Given it that Speaker Kirkpatrick and Governor Sandoval have voiced their opposition to the idea, do you think that such a bill will have legs, or do you think we'll have to wait until facing the voters in 2016?
Probably have to wait. What it is, it's going to be, they're going to get signatures. And if they get enough signatures, then the legislature will have to consider the bill in the first 2 months of the session next year. What part of it's going to be what the bill says. If it has anything to do with money, then it takes a 2/3 requirement, which really, really makes it tough. As you remember, in the Senate, in the Assembly last time, we barely squeaked out of there with 2/3 by getting Michelle Fiore to switch over and Peggy Pierce to vote with us. But so I'm not sure. I think 2/3 would be almost impossible. But if it's just a majority vote, then we might get out of the legislature. But again, I'm not sure if the governor would sign it. So, but the reality is, if we don't vote for it, which is kind of the strategy, then it will be on the ballot in 2016. And I think if we can get the medical marijuana program up and running and show that it doesn't hurt anybody, that it's well regulated, then I think that's a slam dunk in 2016.
Well, obviously, you're a Democratic representative, yet Republicans get cancer too, and a host of other diseases. Why do you think it's been so hard to get Republican support, except for Michelle Fiore and a few brave Republican senators? But why do you think it's been so hard to get Republican support on this issue when they're subject to the same maladies as everybody else?
Well, as you recall, actually, in the state Senate, we had good bipartisan support. So Senator Hutchison, was basically my co-sponsor and pushed the thing through too. So it was when they got to the Assembly, and then it became a partisan issue. So I don't think it was so much people didn't like the marijuana as the Republicans thought, look, we can ding the Democrats by killing this thing, and that's where Michelle really stood up and to her credit, just bucked her caucus and voted with us. But the other thing is, the Republican Party, for better or worse, is kind of an old white people's club, and if you took a poll, who are the people other than the three of us, old white people, that would not support it are Republicans. That's just the nature of the beast.
And yet those old white people get a lot of medical conditions.
Well, trust me, they're taking their OxyContin every morning, and they're taking everything else you can imagine.
They're smoking their cigarettes and their cigars at night and drinking their alcohol. Whatever you got to do, huh? Yeah. Well,
it's a mindset, but for whatever reason, marijuana has traditionally been associated, going back to the 60s, with counterculture, and that group of people still views it as something outside the norm. But the reality is, once they could try it, and hopefully they will, and I've had people come up to me who are very staunch Republicans and said, I somebody's recommended this because I got a bad back or whatever, and they said it's unbelievable.
Absolutely. I first testified before the legislature in 2009, and with the exception of then Judiciary Chairman Bernie Anderson, I did not find a welcoming crowd in Carson City at all. John Asaguera was, that's very nice. It's a very interesting issue you've got there. And it ran the other direction as quick as he could, really. Of course, I didn't speak with you at the time, but in the 2011 session, I noticed there was more traction on the issue, but still opposition from the leadership. How would you characterize the change in sentiment which allowed you to pass this bill? What was it that, what was in the water up there, or what were they smoking that finally got them to change their minds?
That's a good question. I think it's probably just public sentiment. Well, first off, I shouldn't say that. There were major changes in the legislature. In 2011, the majority leader in the Senate, Stephen Horsford, was running for Congress. Oseguera in the Assembly was running for Congress. They were very leery about having anything to do that might tarnish their reputation, so they just didn't want the issue brought up, for better or worse. Once they were gone, leadership had no ulterior motives. They were able to just look honestly at the bill, and then, I shouldn't want to brag about myself, but when I came up there and said, this is a big issue, and I'm going to get out in front and center, they were a little bit more leery about trying to take me on. And again, it turned out there was no opposition, so it's like, why not? And that became the issue. Why not? And frankly, when Hutchison jumped on board, and then we have a Mormon Republican, it's like, let's go for it. But in the Assembly, it just became a question of, if they're for it, we have to be against it. Exactly. And that I think we had to do with construction defect. Then the politics came into play, and there were other issues that they were trying to trade off, and they figured, look, if we can stop it, we can trade for some other things we want. But again, Michelle stepped up and foiled their plan. And we thank her. And we're going to have Michelle on a future broadcast here and thank her in person for that. Just make sure she doesn't bring her gun. I'd feel a lot safer with her. Looking forward, is the development of regulations proceeding as you expected on both the state and county levels? Well, it's much slower. They always say everything takes twice as long as it should, and that's the truth here. The state, I think, has been slow just because they don't have the financial resources. They have Marla basically doing it all, and if you saw the regulations, like 60 pages. I mean, you can't believe what it took to put those things through. And then, of course, everything that takes time. You have to publish them, and then you have to let them wait. And so it's taken longer than we thought. Local government, I'm surprised local government didn't get on board earlier and try to march along. We thought it would be kind of like a dual track. But they basically take the position, well, we're going to wait till the state's done, and then we're going to look at it, which could really be a problem. So now at least we got Clark County and the city moving forward before the regulations are final. And so, honestly, it looks like sometime in the summer, at least, we'll be able to have applications submitted, and then who knows what it'll take. But my goal originally was have something open by the end of 2013. Now my goal is to have something open by the end of 2014, before this next session.
Okay.
Well, and what I'm hearing now, because I have my ear to the ground on these issues, is that there is a kind of a turf battle between the state and the county here, that each wants to have the primary say in who's getting these licenses. And of course, the most recent development of that is that the county commission here in Clark has decided that they're going to have special use permits for each of these applications. Does that comport with your legislative intent, and do you think that there's a potential problem there, that if the county says, well, we're going to get 10 licenses or 30 licenses here in the county, and so we're going to put 10 or 30 applicants up for these, and the state can take them or leave them, and then the state might say, well, we don't want all of those?
Well, it's going to be tricky, because frankly, when we wrote this bill, we went around the country and said, give us your best ideas. We want to have the best bill we could have. And everyone says, we have the best law in the country. But one of the things they stressed was the federal government has said, we will stay out if you have tight state control. We don't like what's in California, where every entity has their own little ideas and things, frankly, that we don't want to happen could happen. So that's why we drafted it. And we drafted the bill to be tight state control. The state, you apply to the state looks at it, the state approves it, the state sends it to the local government for their final approval. Now, I never frankly thought about the county wanting to have some kind of involvement, but in retrospect, we probably should have put some process in there where they were able to look at the applications before they were submitted. They're doing it anyway. Now, how that ultimately plays out, I'm not sure, but I can tell you if the county says we have a right to screen everybody that before they go to the state, that was not the intent. And I don't think we'll know what's going to happen until the state sends somebody to the county, and the county says, no, I won't consider you because you didn't come to us first. But hopefully that'll all work out, and we'll have some kind of a pre-screen by the city or the county. They'll send it up. The state will make their selections. They'll send it back. And then the county, if they send back 40 names and the county says, well, we like this one, or we like that one, and they start throwing them around, that's fine. But I don't think the county should be in a situation where they say you can only consider these 10 or these 20 or these 30. That was not the intent. A
couple of things in what you just said. Marla, of course, is Marla McDade Williams, who's the deputy director of Division of Health that's overseeing the development of this program. And you're talking about the federal government saying that they would stay out of this. And, considering that the federal government owns 7/8 of the land in the state of Nevada, it's amazing how many people who live here want the federal government to stay out of their business. And that very libertarian streak that we have here. But I'd like to pursue that a little further. Where are you getting, or who in the government is saying we're going to stay out? Is that coming from the U.S. Attorney's Office or DOJ beyond that, or?
No, it was basically the memo from last August where the department, where the Deputy Attorney General
Cole memo,
right, where they said basically if you can meet these conditions, we're not going to interfere in what's going on. And interpretation, at least at the time, by all the national groups, MPP and people, was that tight state control is the best way to comport with this memo and to make sure that the feds don't come in and poke the nose around.
Even though there is a loophole in the memo that says, unless we feel like it.
Right. Well,
they're going to leave that open.
There is that. But I guess the point is, we don't want hanky-panky. Not that I'm accusing the county of that. I know the county does liquor licenses all day long, and they're very tightly controlled, and they have their own process. But what you don't want to see is somehow or other juice and money get involved in this, and people who have no business having one all of a sudden get a license because they know somebody or something happened. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's what we don't want to happen, because we don't want this thing to be tarnished. We want it to be on the up and up.
I agree. And, you touch on another thing there that the wrong people getting licenses. I was privileged to sit in on a platform committee meeting at the last state Democratic convention in 2012, and when this particular issue came up, the platform committee reported that from each county in the state, they had strong Democratic support for people who wanted to have better access, have dispensaries, which we have, but also for them to be able to take part in this business, that they see a green revolution, an economic revolution happening, and they wanted the ability of just typical middle-class Nevadans to get involved in this. And yet we're seeing, it almost seems like it's a flight to big money in getting these. So
that doesn't seem but I'd say that was intentional. One of our fears was that if you make it too easy, then you're going to have people who are on the edge. And if people have people on the edge that are having a hard time paying their bills, that's where, again, corruption can come in, or it can go out the back door, or whatever can happen.
So that was the reason for the $250,000 liquid assets, to make sure that they were solid and had their business plan in place and had their money in place, so that no hanky-panky would take place?
Well, yeah, I'm not saying they would necessarily, but obviously when you're operating on a shoestring, then you're going to have to cut some corners. And we wanted the best, tightest, and also that's why we said you want people with experience. So we wanted actually the best growers from other states to come here, best dispensary owners, and then to merge with business people here that had the money. So we're looking at a major industry over time.
Yep.
And it would be great to have Nevada have the model for the nation rather than ranking 46th or 47th in something.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It would be terrific.
It would be amazing. It'd be amazing.
Last weekend, as things are moving forward, at a Libertarian Party debate amongst contenders for the sheriff's job, all 4 candidates expressed support for the legitimacy of the medical cannabis program. Now, is this just politicking, or do you sense an actual change in sentiment from those in law enforcement whom you deal with? And I ask this because one of the candidates, Bobby G., was steadfastly opposed to the program when I last spoke with him several years ago.
But you know what? Bobby G. said that he was willing to come on and talk to us so we can get it straight from the horse's mouth on him. But
well, I mean, the reality is they're all politicians, and politicians change their mind, and they have a right to change their mind. And a lot of them have their ear to the ground, and they can sense what public opinion is. But I will say this, in Carson City, when this bill was under discussion, the police were brought to the table, and they said, if you will make these changes and do these things, we will support it. And to their credit, they did. And they realized, like everyone else, the current system is broken. I mean, it's not as though there's not marijuana out there. It's not as though you can't buy marijuana out there. The problem right now is just we aren't making any money on it. You're making criminals out of people that have it, and we're not putting any tax money on it to help ourselves. And then we're spending money on law enforcement, so that the whole thing is worth. But if you type in weedmaps.com into the computer, you can see 20 places right now where you can pick up a phone and call, and they'll deliver it to your hotel.
And Justin Hartfeld, owner of Weed Maps, thanks you for that plug.
Well, that actually segues into the next question. The biggest concern about that many of the current patients have is that they're going to be barred from growing in 2016. How do you plan on addressing this in the next session? And do you think that there's going to be an appetite for more reform on the medical program, given that it took a dozen years for the first significant change to take place?
Yes, yes to both things. First off, we have an interim subcommittee dealing with marijuana, and we will review what's happened and make recommendations to the next legislature. But I know there's going to be some tweaks. I'm not sure how significant they will be. As far as the growing, that's one thing I want to look around the country, see what's happening in other states where they have the legalization. I'm very sympathetic to people who need to grow because they can't afford it, but I've also been told that the reality is you can't just grow it for free. I mean, it does cost a lot of money in electricity and stuff, so maybe it's cheaper to just pay $100. Maybe it'd be cheaper to have subsidies for poor people at the existing dispensaries. So I honestly don't know the answer, but I am very sympathetic to people who say that if they can't grow, they won't have access, because this is medicine. This is not recreational. This is medicine.
And here in Nevada, we're pioneer spirits. We do things for ourselves. And the state told us for 12 years, you need to grow your own medicine. And now people have spent that time and money in order to do that. So, to wrap up, Department of Health and Human Services recently added PTSD to the list. And I know that you personally lobbied the state for inclusion of this. And I'm sure many of the veterans in Nevada will thank you for that. Given the veterans population, do you feel this is an important step to help those who've served?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the greatest things about this is that it substitutes for very addictive, very toxic, very negative drugs. And to the extent that people can use marijuana as in replacement is fantastic. In fact, I would love to see a pilot program here in Nevada where we can have our cannabis go to the federal Veterans Hospital out there in North Las Vegas for use for PSD, and have some kind of a experimental program where they can try it out.
And you heard it here first.
Amen, brother. All right. Well, Senator Tick Segerbloom, thank you so much for appearing with us. We look forward to keeping in touch with you over the next few months and seeing where this goes in the next session. And we want to thank everybody who was listening in on this program. Thank you so much for our first broadcast. And we're going to bring you the latest news every week, let you know what's going on in Nevada and beyond. So
right
thanks
here
again.
Tuesday, 4 p.m., 12:30 a.m., KLAV.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.